For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Coming up to 7:07 on CJAD, welcome to today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. Welcome, Josh.
Hello, Dan.
And a very special guest this evening. It's a pub that I frequented myself. It's the Irish Embassy Pub downtown. We have the owner in studio, Paul Quinn. Welcome, Paul.
Hello, guys.
Tonight is going to be a great story, Dan. You know, we have a large family. You know, Paul comes from a family of 7 kids. It is generation after generation of pub ownership, of entrepreneurs, in fact. And it's a story of a pub, a bar. I mean, everybody's kind of interested in how a bar works. So without any further ado, Paul, welcome. And maybe to get us started, you can tell us, what is the Irish Embassy today? What is Paul Quinn doing today here in Montreal and a little bit in Canada? And then where did it start with the Quinn family?
Okay, Josh. The Irish Embassy is an Irish pub at downtown Montreal on Bishop Street. We're licensed for about 400 people. We're casual fare. We do regular nice beer, Guinness. We've got the Smithwick's. We've got the fish and chip stuff. I'm going into my 4th year. I came to Montreal because my wife is from Montreal. Originally grew up in Dublin, Ireland. Came over in 1988. Lived in Toronto for about 10 years. Worked with my family there and my brothers. We've got 6 Irish bars in Toronto. And basically moved up to get away from them because they were annoying me and drinking all the beer.
So does that make you 2nd generation pub owner?
No, I'm actually a 4th generation pub owner on my dad's side and a 5th pub generation owner on my mum's side.
It really is all in the family. When did it start? Where did it start?
Well, I grew up in Dublin. My mother and my father both come from Cavan and Leitrim. So the businesses would have started back there with my great-grandparents'. Back in the day in Ireland, in your village, you'd have the local kind of pub, funeral home, grocery store. It was all one package. But I'll jump ahead more or less to my family. So in the 50s, my parents got married. They came to Canada. They had 3 children here. They moved back to Ireland in the 60s. My dad opened up a supermarket chain, which he called Quinsworth, which he ran for a good few years, which he then sold to Loblaws, which is a Canadian company. He also opened up hotels and bars and lots of different businesses in Ireland. Then Ireland had an economic recession, like there was a global recession similar to what's happened in the US. Times were kind of bad. He had an additional 4 children during that period, so now there's 7 kids. So he figured it would be good to come back to Canada. So he came back in 1988 and we came to Toronto, and my dad opened up a brokerage company and sold everything from jams and waters and candies and all different Irish and English product into the supermarkets. And we did books and picture framing and lots of different businesses, and we kind of graduated back into the food and beverage and the bar business.
It sounds like there was a whole ton of experience, not just in the bar or pub, but kind of all over. Did you have a lot of these jobs too? Like, were you and all your siblings kind of helping out a little bit everywhere?
As kids growing up, we all sort of partook in the family businesses. That's just, it would be natural. My dad would be going out on a Saturday. You'd be going to a Knob Hill Farms in Toronto at the time. They were one of the biggest. It was the size of it was like a 600,000 square foot supermarket, and we'd go out and we'd help with setting up the big display of whatever product he had, and it was, the family were very involved.
So experience and varied experience. Would you classify that as something important to the entrepreneur?
I think experience and education are the 2 main things if you're going to be in business and be an entrepreneur. I think experience is what leads to education. Like when I was a kid growing up in Ireland, My father was considered a true industry leader. He brought the tea bag, he brought the 6-pack of beer. These are all concepts that he had done in the 50s and the 60s in Canada. So that's what he did in Ireland, which then led to sort of like the education. So I think the experience is a big part. Then it becomes education. People get educated, and then the next entrepreneur starts ahead. He gets more experience and adds back to education.
Was it difficult for your family to make the transition between all these various businesses and industries?
Growing up at the time, it just felt normal. Felt normal for us. Now when I look back, there was a lot of different things going on, so it could have been confusing. But I suppose that's why I am where I am today, because I just take it for granted, and it seems natural to gravitate towards business and do business deals.
So does that make you interested to start different businesses, or are you truly focused on the one pub at the moment?
I think that's the problem. I should be more focused on the one pub, but it's like an addiction or a gambler. I can't stop looking at other type of deals, but they're all sort of, everything's interconnected. Like I'm working on, I've got my own cider in the pub, Cider Man. I'm working with a group on developing another beer. I'm importing beer into Quebec. We're working on exporting beer out of Quebec into Ontario and maybe abroad. So.
Is Quebec, we joke about being big drinkers, but is Quebec really a prime market for all these types of products?
Well, for an Irish pub downtown where I am, it's a very it's an Irish village, so it's a good neighborhood. There's a good client base down there.
Okay. I think it's interesting, that the Irish Embassy came into a location that was kind of surrounded by other Irish pubs as well. When you first came into Montreal, Paul, did you choose that location for a reason? I chose I wasn't, when I realized I was maybe going to come to Montreal because my wife didn't like it in Toronto, I found it very difficult because the food and beverage industry in Quebec is very, very tough. It's probably one of the best industries, but it's a very tough one. So the smoking bylaw was coming in at that time, and it's an English area. So I was fortunate enough that there was a property on Bishop Street that had a patio for 150 people, and the licensing law for smoking was going to allow smoking on the patio. And I figured that would be an advantage that would maybe even up the score and help me to be competitive in the Montreal market.
Paul Quinn joins us. He is the owner of the Irish Embassy Pub. You can join the conversation at 514-790-0991, Star Talk, star 8255 on Bell Mobility. And you can also text in your comments or questions to 514-800. Today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau. CJAD time is coming up to 7:15.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:17 on CJAD, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. Dan Delmar along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller for today's Entrepreneur, and our guest this evening, Paul Quinn. He's the owner of the Irish Embassy Pub downtown. And Paul, earlier we were talking about you guys being around for about 4 years downtown, moving into this neighborhood where there are lots of Irish pubs around. How do you guys stand out from the crowd, and how do you guys how have you survived as the new kid on the block?
Well, coming to when I left Toronto, I walked out of the door of our pubs in Toronto. We've got 5-6 pubs there, and I thought, is there an oversaturation? And there's lots more pubs. So when I came to Montreal and I looked around, there wasn't as many pubs, even though there's a lot of pubs. So I figured there'd be a big market. So the first year was very, very difficult because business was a lot harder than I anticipated. But and the competition really held on to their customer. But we basically feel that we've got a great product, and our food is good and our drink is good. We modified. A lot of people feel an Irish pub is just a certain type of pub, but things are constantly evolving. We brought a new mix to it. We brought in the big plasma TVs. So we've changed the flavour slightly from some of our competition to offer our consumer more of what they're looking for.
They say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Not to call your competition enemies, but do you keep tabs on them? Do you kind of monitor so that you make sure you have that differentiating factor?
I'm always out there seeing what everybody else in the food and beverage industry in my neighbourhood is doing, and that includes from Scores to Three Brassers to the Irish pubs. So I'm always looking at what's there to try and make sure that I'm giving my customer the best value and the best experience for their dollar.
Is it difficult to maintain that authentic Irish flavor when there's so many different options out there, so many different products, so many different looks to the restaurant available, or do you really do you deviate a bit from the Irish pub?
Well, I suppose being Irish and growing up in Ireland helps, because you're not a plastic pub. I am what I am. So some people come in and will say, well, you're not truly an Irish pub, but they haven't even been to Ireland. So my family have lots of hotels and pubs back home, and they wouldn't be what you'd envision an Irish pub to be. So I don't find that a problem at all. I think the product we have has a great Irish flavour to it, and I'm happy with the product, and I think the customers are happy with the product.
Does the product evolve? I mean, do you look at the environment and the changing scenes and changing times? Do you find yourself staying with the times or actively pursuing and changing your products?
It's a big problem. Like 10 years ago or 9 years ago in Toronto, will we put TVs in our pub? It was a big issue, but you can't dictate to the customer. There's been rapid change with technology and the consumer, so we've put in the TV in the pubs, we've put in the Wi-Fi. The customer is living a fast-paced life, and you don't want to totally, like, I don't know, whatever with your product, but I think our product is an Irish flavour. We've got the main principles of our product are we've a wide selection of beer. It's a casual, comfortable environment. We give a comfort product and a casual price point.
You know, you mentioned price point, which was certainly huge. You're coming to a new environment. You're coming to Montreal. You're used to Toronto. Did you do your research? How did you develop your price point? And did you change it along the way?
My price point was very much dictated by fellow Irish pubs in the neighbourhood. No point going higher, no point going lower. The price of Guinness hasn't changed downtown Montreal since '84. I'm sure my competition, if you go on a price point, a pint of Guinness should probably be $9. So I suppose that's affected the market. We all have to stay within a price point now because the consumer maybe doesn't want to pay $9 for a pint when you can get a domestic product. So I am watching. That's how the price point came. Now we've got a volume which we're happy with, so we try to adjust our prices and maybe make a little bit of a margin on different items.
You know, Dan, it's interesting because we're talking about competition and knowing your competition and staying on top of them. In such a cutthroat market as bars, there's no more better example to be set than, hey, you got to know what's around you. And if you even deviate a little bit or you don't stay on top of it, and entrepreneurs should certainly recognize this, then you could be totally dead in the water. So to stay on top of your competition and try to differentiate yourself, or at least know where you can't go, I think is hugely important, and entrepreneurs need to always keep that in their sights.
You can join the conversation. Paul Quinn is our guest. He's the owner of the Irish Embassy Pub. You can give us a call at 514-7900-991. Star Talk on Bell Mobility. That's star 8255. Or text in for 25 cents to 514-800. 723. Today's Entrepreneur continues in a moment.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur on CJAD. Dan Delmar along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guest this evening, the owner of the Irish Embassy Pub downtown, Paul Quinn. And Paul, pubs, as we were talking about before, could be a hectic environment, a crazy environment. How do you find the right people, the right team to surround you, and what qualities do you look for in your people?
I think at the end of the day, you were asking earlier about it was about the Irish pub or whatever. The pub is all about the people, and that is the hardest thing of our business, is finding the right people. And in Montreal, I've been very fortunate, and I think that's why we're doing so well, because we've got a great team and a great family of people in the pub. Montreal, where we are, it's a big university city. There's a lot of young, energetic, very talented people. So we go through stages where a lot of the employees, they're studying to be accountants, doctors, lawyers, lots of different stuff, but they have to make their money during the year. So we've got a good resource of people.
I would imagine, as you say, we're dealing with university people. You're dealing with fairly youthful employees that have yet to reach a certain level of maturity, and they're dealing with alcohol. Have you ever had to reel in a staff member? Do you have to kind of set the ground rules from day one?
It's a very difficult product. We sell alcohol. It's constantly altering people's minds. The staff, we're selling all the time and creating the party and the goodwill. So it is an issue to keep the younger staff, that they don't get out of control with the drink. There's no drinking on the job. But when they're finished, they like to have a few drinks. So that is something where I really try to educate the staff and tell them the dangers and the fun of drink. And we really try to keep it. Some pubs promote an overconsumption among their staff. We try to promote that, like our business, we're driving towards more pub, food, restaurant, not like in the past when it just is all about being 18 years of age and getting hammered.
Not that that's a bad thing, but certainly it's something you need to have controls in your business, especially as a pub. Have you set certain controls that are obvious that you really put as the number 1 and 2 things that drive home to your staff?
We won't tolerate like intoxication on the job. By law, there's meant to be no consumption of alcohol of any staff. In Montreal, it's kind of common among a lot of industry people to drink on the job. So we will allow maybe now and again a few drinks because we don't want to be the bad boss in town. But we're just there to try and help the staff. We've got great doormen. We don't challenge staff, and doormen aren't there to challenge consumers after they get drunk. And at the end of the day, the customer comes in. If they have too much to drink, sometimes they will get all happy. They'll get sad. They'll get mad. It's our job to to basically handle that in a good fashion. If they've drank too much, we've got Point 8, which is a service where a company will come with a car and drive the people home. If they need to take their car home, we'll take the keys off them if they're drinking, and we just try and work with, if it's a large group, rather than challenge the drunk person, if you approach the group in a nice manner and say, listen guys, he's had enough tonight, come back tomorrow. Usually everybody's happy and there's no problems.
I think, the level of social responsibility that entrepreneurs have to face on a daily basis, whether in pub owner, retail, or themselves, is something that has to stay in the forefront of their minds. And certainly in a pub, there's no better example than that.
Sure, and I'm sure lots of examples of interesting situations. And after the news break, we'll ask Paul about that. What kinds of I guess funny stories he's seen over the years in the pub business. 514-790-0991. Star Talk on Bell Mobility, and you can also text in to 514-800. Paul Quinn from the Irish Embassy, our guest this evening on Today's Entrepreneur.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:32. Welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guest this evening from the Irish Embassy Pub, Paul Quinn. And Paul, earlier we were discussing, how you control the chaos at a pub atmosphere. Tell us some of maybe a couple of funny anecdotes or stories that you've had over the years, either in Montreal or Toronto, stuff that's stuck with you over the years.
I suppose some of the funny stories would be the customers who come in. We've had a few Irish customers who come in who have not made it across to the US, and they'll tell you, excuse me, I got a bit of a cough here. They'll tell you how they're planning to get across the border. One of the guys was going across in being rolled up in a rug. So my whole point is, have you really been drinking that much? When you go down to the washroom and you find the underwear, sometimes you wonder, like, what's going on here? Or when you get called by the alarm company after closing hour, and you find out that someone actually was just had a few too many and was asleep under one of the tables.
Oh no!
These are all great experiences that you certainly, there's no better life lesson than learning from these experiences. But Paul, is there a mentor or somebody that you looked up to and kind of used as a sounding board along the way as you were learning how to be a good entrepreneur?
I suppose my father and a lot of family friends and uncles and aunts and mums.
And I believe that I think your dad passed away almost a year ago. How has that left a void in your entrepreneurial and your family life?
It's been very tough because I used to talk to him every day. So it's a big, big loss. We loved him very much, but I think we live on in his memory and very proud of what he left us and all the examples and what we're doing today. So.
But there's certainly 7 kids left behind, so I'm sure you feed off each other. Are there specific roles that you play? I mean, is everybody in the business?
No, family of 7, so I work with 3 of my brothers. And then I've got a brother and 2 sisters who are in the medical field. So as they say in an Irish family, well, you have to have one who's a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, a priest, a bar owner, and a tough guy.
Which I'm sure you run the gamut. So the ones that are in the business, I mean, do you all play your separate roles? Do you step on each other's toes? Do you get along? Have you, who's now that unfortunately your dad passed away, is there a decision maker that emerged, or do you all play a role?
There is all of the above. And the fact, I suppose, now that I'm up in Montreal, in Toronto sometimes, yes, there is days when there is too many chiefs, which isn't good for a business. You need a lot of different Indians and people need to know their roles. And you need to have defined meetings and then kind of work it as a democracy. But there is stronger individuals who, I suppose, their opinion would carry more weight.
And from a mediation, arbitration, did the non-business owners ever kind of get involved? I mean, you have family dinners. Everybody has their family dinners. Does it kind of get thrown at the table?
No, they're fairly okay. But because we're in the food and beverage industry, they're always coming in and they support the businesses. So they'll always give their advice. But they don't get stuck into the difficult arguments over business.
And from a structure standpoint, is that something that was actively sought out? Like when your dad, he knew he had these 3-4 family members and of course the non-family members, was it ever discussed? Did he kind of include his children in the planning and structure and this is how things are going to work?
As we said earlier, as a family growing up, you always were doing stuff. So you heard at the dinner table, we were out working. So we were very involved. But no, there wasn't a kind of a succession plan. And my father passed away fairly quick. So, but yeah, that would be a problem, I'd say, for a lot of other people. It's great for the entrepreneurial where you work as a family the way we did. You all get great experience. But I think you also need to have defined structure. And roles.
And when you came to Montreal, I mean, you said it was certainly a learning curve. Is there anything that you would do differently, or what would you learn from your experience of starting out a business in a totally new environment?
Not to be as confident in, Toronto took a lot of time to grow and be there, and coming here thinking, I suppose we see chains like McDonald's and Tim Hortons, feeling that the product we had would implement very easy. It was a big learning curve. The customer base is a lot different. Even though maybe 90% of the product is the same, that 10% is greatly different, and it was a big, big learning curve. So I would be far more open and willing to really understand the customer base the next time around.
How are the two markets different, Montreal and Toronto, as far as, opening pubs? Is Montreal, does it have some advantages, disadvantages over Toronto?
They're both very good cities. It's just 2 different locations. In Toronto, we're downtown under the towers in a suit and tie environment with a corporate vend. In Montreal, I'm downtown, but more in a tourist and a student demographic. So I have to be more conscious to the price point, more conscious to the available budget of if a student's paying with his money and you've got a businessman playing with corporate money. They're 2 different things.
And I guess they're more rowdy here.
Exactly, a lot more fun. Here we're more. Here is more of, I'd say, a more casual, relaxed, fun pub. Toronto, our pubs are a little bit more stuffy, suit and tie.
Now, I've been really wanting to ask this question for the whole 40 minutes that we've been sitting here. We're talking about a bar ownership. We're talking about perhaps some things, as you say, are they shady or not? Paul, what's the deal? Do bars get shaken down? I mean, You know, are there people that come to you and ask you for money for protection?
I've been very fortunate that hasn't happened. I'm not saying that will, maybe I'm the fortunate thing. I run a very clean operation. I stick within the laws. I don't have any drugs. We don't do any money lending. In my pub, we don't have the gambling machines. There's certain things that will attract a certain amount of trouble, and I think there may be bars that do have trouble, but maybe they're inviting the trouble partly as well.
So it's truly a conscious decision, regardless of potentially the dollars that could come with it. It's yours. It's probably a family decision as well over the years.
I don't think we've ever discussed it. I think we just run a clean, proper operation. We work, we don't, I'm not doing drugs. We don't do that type of stuff. So it never really came up. And I suppose maybe that's why we are fortunate we haven't had trouble. And also, we've got a great relationship with the police downtown. We run a very clean operation. We're a fairly large size operation, so we're fairly visible. I think people maybe who are in the business of maybe selling stuff they shouldn't be avoid, they don't need the trouble or they don't need the spotlight on them, so they'll go maybe somewhere less noticeable.
Do you feel that's been an important and valuable decision, is to kind of stay close to law enforcement?
I'm not close to law enforcement. We
Well,
I know the guys downtown. It's like it's. I think they're quite happy. We haven't had one police. We haven't had to call the police once in. We're going into our 4th years for trouble. So we run. We work very close with them on what are the rules, what you want us to do, and we don't mess around with it. We don't bring in illegal liquor. We don't. When we hire people, we let them know we won't tolerate any form of illegal substance abuse or selling, and you've got to kill it very quick. Otherwise, it could be like a bad rash. It'll be all over you.
Can be tricky sometimes when your employees do have to get physical once in a while with people who are overly rowdy or I guess mischievous. What directives do you give to your bouncers, for example, to have them contain the situation without getting it out of control?
We take a passive, non-confrontational role. The majority of people who come into establishment will come in with friends. If one or two of them get out of hand and we challenge them, a big part of the problem can be the security. If you challenge them, well, then their friends are going to back them up. If you approach it to them in a manner, listen, can you get your buddy home? We know we had a few too many. They'll usually work with you and there won't be a problem.
So you got to use a bit of psychology in the whole experience.
Yeah, you just have to be smart, and if you end up with 3 doormen who want to be Rocky every night, you're going to have problems.
It's not an easy business. Have you made sacrifices for this?
I've made sacrifices sometimes on the business because my wife is in a medical field, so I'm not there sometimes because I want to be with her. And I think my wife has made huge sacrifices because the nature of my business is 24/7.
And have you changed any of your processes or thoughts, or how do you kind of resolve something like that?
You just keep on working and hope that more of a structure and a format comes about.
So do you find yourself building a better team around you so that there's something that can run without your physical presence?
Yes, in the beginning, that was one of the other things I'd do again. As you said, coming to a city without having many contacts was a big, big problem. Now, I've been working with people for 4 years and we've got an incredible team, and without, the business really is the people. Without the guys in the kitchen, without the guys up in the office and the staff on the floor, there'd be nothing there. And the whole concept, I think, of a successful entrepreneur is someone who can actually leave where they're not needed. The entity and the people are greater now than any one individual.
And if you had to offer words of wisdom to today's entrepreneur, what would they be?
Entrepreneurship, I think today is a lot harder. Things have got a lot faster. Just keep on trying. If you've got a true spirit, if you get knocked down, get back up, keep on learning, and keep on trying, and keep striving for your goal. It'll come in.
Dan, as we kind of wrap up with Paul here, I find that one of the items, and he said it earlier on, and I hope those that were listening kept it as part of them. Experience. Any experience you can get, take the good, learn from it. Sometimes there's bad too, but you're gonna expand from that too, and you're gonna get that knowledge, and you're gonna be able to apply it pretty much in any situation. Experience combined with a certain amount of education. Information is a dangerous thing, some people say. Combine the experience with that information, with that education, and that is huge for any entrepreneur. And we certainly see that with every entrepreneur, every successful entrepreneur. It's not just by the gut. It's gut with information. It's experience along with information, and that's really where the information and where the entrepreneur is really going to succeed.
What I also see with Paul is an ability to be extremely professional and organized within, I guess, a business that can be quite chaotic. So I think maybe, Josh, this is something you must tell some of your clients, that all businesses can be organized and run efficiently and doesn't have to fall into the bar stereotype that everything is out of control and there's alcohol spilling everywhere and money coming in and out. I mean, there can be structure wherever you go.
There's definitely, I use the term organized chaos quite frequently. And the reality is everybody runs their business within their own little framework, but not everybody follows those rules. So you have to be able to see where those people are not following the rules and A, determine if it's a good thing because you're thinking out of the box, or B, make sure you kind of wrap your arm around them and say, hey, you know what? This is really where to go. This is the business, and explain it to them. Don't just take it for granted, or don't just slap them across the face and say, do it or else. It doesn't necessarily work, and certainly not with the generation that's working today.
After the break, we'll talk about IT issues. Fuller Landau's IT guy, Kevin Ammerman, will be in studio. We'll talk about social media and other aspects to IT and your business. You can always join the conversation at 514-790-0991. Star Talk on Bell Mobility, that's star 8255, and texting to 514-800.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:48 on CJAD. Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, presented by Fuller Landau. This show all about business people just like you, struggled and managed to succeed in the end. Dan Delmar with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller. And we welcome to the conversation, on top of Paul Quinn, the owner of the Irish Embassy Pub, Kevin Ammerman. Kevin is the IT director for Fuller Landau. Welcome back, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
So we were talking about the restaurant industry, and it is becoming more and more important to incorporate various technologies in the industry. Tell us about some of these systems out there that could make life for restaurant owners like Paul a heck of a lot easier.
The key is really probably the point of sale system. So the system that you see the waiters and waitresses punching in and punching out of as you enter the restaurant and as they're taking your orders and generating your bills. They've become much more complex over the past few years with the introduction of touchscreen technology. And you see very few restaurants these days that have just a simple cash register sitting by the exit on the way out. By and large, most of them have touchscreen technology, usually several of these units scattered around the establishment. And some of them are even going to the point where they have portable devices with touchscreens that they go to the tables with as well.
And Paul, how have these devices helped your business? It's made it easier, I'm assuming?
It's made it a lot easier. Everything goes to a central place. All the orders go up to a kitchen. It cuts down on a lot of the trouble. Historically, in this business, there was a lot of theft. I don't like to say that because I love all the people I work with. I think they're all very honest. But it just helps really improve on efficiency and keeping track of your systems. If you're working with like as an entrepreneur, like I just made things happen. Whereas I'm at a stage now where you need to work with the professionals and implement systems. If you have your systems in, they can tell you so much. It really helps with your business.
So the controls or the capacity for these softwares to control and to give you that information is hugely beneficial.
Yes.
And are there other systems, Kevin? I'm sure there's not just point of sale systems. There must be other, systems where entrepreneurs can use to control their systems to gain information.
Well, I guess the next tie-in would be to your accounting system, and this is where we've had some experience at Fuller Landau is setting up smaller businesses, integrating their retail systems with their actual bookkeeping systems. So tying those systems together, making sure that smaller businesses get off to a good start when they're initiating the books, so that their bookkeepers and accountants don't have to invest so much time and money later on. Doing that initial setup and getting a good chart of accounts set up, that's a good thing to do, and to bring in a professional to help out with.
For either of you, what kind of information do we know about what goes on at businesses, whether it's a pub or any other type of business today, that we didn't know maybe 10 years ago because of these new types of systems?
It'll give you an up-to-the-minute tracking of everything you sell. Before it was guesswork, whereas now you know exactly what you're buying, what you're selling. My brother, he's a bit more high-tech than me. He'll get his email if a pint is poured at 3 o'clock in the morning. It goes through the flow meter. He'll get a text. So you can just really keep up-to-the-minute information on everything going on.
What I find, Dan, is the biggest difference then versus now is really controlling your inventory, knowing exactly what you have, what to be able to sell. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that try to look at their min-max rules and say, hey, if I have a certain product that's at a very low level and I need to reorder it or lead time, I think the computer and software systems today do an extraordinary job of letting you know and helping manage those inventory levels. I mean, there's so many implications behind it. It's astounding. So that's probably from what I can tell from then till now is one of the most important and valuable changes to the entrepreneur.
And if there's one industry where the inventory can get out of control, it would be the food and beverage industry. So you mentioned something called flow meters. So I guess you track exactly how much liquid is coming out of the keg.
Yeah.
And you said, wow, you just know like to the
penny
drop.
Well, it's control all with waste and spillage and of course we talked about theft before. But there's an inordinate amount of information that you can get from these systems. And I think, when we come back from the break, as exciting as this is, I think from a retail standpoint in a pub, I think there's some social media that we can really get to and kind of drive people towards your location as well.
We'll talk about social media in just a second. 514-790-0991. And you can also text to 514-800 if you want to join the conversation. It's 7:53. This is Today's Entrepreneur on CJAD.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
7:56. Welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. Dan Delmar, along with Fuller Landau's Josh Miller, and our guests are right now in studio. Paul Quinn is the owner of the Irish Embassy Pub, and from Fuller Landau, Kevin Ammerman, who's here to talk about IT systems. And Kevin, we're discussing social media and how important this is to new businesses. Tell us about, I guess, some of the advice that you give to your clients when it comes to social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Foursquare, and how they can incorporate that into their business.
It's not just incorporating it into their business, but taking advantage of the specific aspects that really help them out. There's some really fun little utilities out there these days. One of the new ones is Foursquare, which is a location-based service. Foursquare and Facebook both have location services these days, and it gives the patrons of an establishment a place to meet up offline and compete against one another, more or less. So Foursquare, for example, allows patrons to check in to different venues or establishments, and for each check-in you get points, which accumulate, and the person with the most points at any given time is the mayor of the establishment, which may or may not come with perks. Some restaurants offer free food or discounts or things like this.
So this is something that you do from your phone or your smartphone, or?
Yeah, almost exclusively over BlackBerries, iPhones, all of that kind of thing. Whatever has a web browser will allow you to log in, and the idea is to sort of get patrons competing against one another to attend these venues more often. And the nice thing about it is you don't have to go searching for these locations. They're actually the GPS that's built into most smartphones today will tell you things that are in your neighborhood and give you a menu of things to choose from.
And then owners of the establishments, as you said, can offer coupons or entice or kind of create a buzz for their own establishment.
Not only create a buzz, but what happens is they'll attempt to steal customers away from other establishments. Being it's geographically located, it'll show you who else is in the neighborhood as well. So they try to get people to check in at neighboring venues.
Think about that, Paul. You have a bunch of Irish pubs surrounding you. You might be able to cyber steal them into your place.
Yeah, and I might have to be careful. Then I might have those problems you talked about.
It's okay. You have somebody in the family to deal with them.
Exactly.
I think, thanks very much, Kevin. I think, one of the aspects that we're talking about are dealing with IT as we near the end of the show is not only to use it from a creative standpoint, but I think before the break we were talking about controls. Controls for the entrepreneur, controls for their business, and when you're applying the experience and the information, the controls that give the information for the entrepreneur, that's really where the biggest effect is going to be on their business and how they can kind of control not just the top line, but the bottom line as well. And that's where it's all about.
Even if it's in the pub industry that can get a bit rowdy sometimes.
But it can be a hell of a lot of fun, too.
Thank you very much to our guest, Kevin Ammerman, the IT guy over at Fuller Landau, and Paul Quinn, owner of the Irish Embassy Pub. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And Josh, thank you again. We'll be off until November 29th, that Monday.
That's right.
So we shall have another edition of Today's Entrepreneur then. You can always reach Fuller Landau at 514-875-2865 or visit their website, www.flmontreal.com. For Josh Miller, I'm Dan Delmar. Good night. Friendly Fire is next.